welcome to Third Eye Champagne. So this is a requested video by a couple of people. I did a whole sequence last month interviewing 3 really interesting ladies showcasing the feminine psychic slash intuitive slash astrologer, Eliza Einhorn, Lena Rodriguez, and of course Linda Grindle. And some people said, well, you didn't profile yourself. And a lot of people said, have one of those ladies interview you. Well, here's the deal. I didn't have time. I didn't have time to get somebody on the schedule to collaborate with somebody on that. So basically I'm going to, yeah, it's Mr. Santos. I'm going to just kind of update my origin story and answer some common questions that I get, and that will suffice for now. So the first thing we're going to talk about is I'm having a Narcissa Malfoy moment, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I didn't go all the way blonde. I'm doing like a Debbie Harry thing. I'm having the time of my life with this hair though, because it's like, if I put my head back, I look fully blonde. But if I put my head forward, I'm clearly not. Let's talk about Auntie. Let's pretend you don't know me. We'll get to the part where you know me, but let's pretend you don't know me. We're gonna start off slow and easy. My full name is Kirsten Angela Langston. You can Google me and find out all sorts of personal things. I grew up in a little town called Benicia, California, which is in Northern California, just outside of San Francisco. And it's a weird little town, I have to say. I don't think it's as weird now as it was back in the day, but it's kind of a weird town. It's a haunted town for sure. I am Portuguese on my mom's side and Scottish and Irish on my dad's side. My great-grandparents immigrated from Portugal, from the Azores. And my great-grandparents on my dad's side came from Scotland, from Glasgow, and my great-grandmother was from, geez, I want to say it's County Cork in Ireland. So that's how you get this. I turn brown as a nut if I go in the sun. There's the Portuguese, and if I don't, I stay white as shit. There's your Irish and your Scottish. I am not a natural blonde, as we know. So how did I become a psychic? In my family, on both sides, the psychic thing was always a thing. Like, people would talk about how they had premonitions. They would talk about ghosts. They would talk about, on both sides, heavily Catholic. So there's this, like, the whole, like, Catholic mythology, the saints, you know, all of that was part of my life growing up. And I will tell you this, I didn't believe in it. I did not believe in it at all. My mom, when we got into high school, my mom, we would do seance every Halloween with like all our friends, and it was always like, ha ha ha, we did a seance. Meanwhile, my mom's like taking it hella seriously. She's like, this is real, kids, we're talking to ghosts. And we were like, sure we are. But I mean, a lot of them believed in it. I didn't. Even, I remember we did one, and something kept touching the side of my face, and I kept going like this, like thinking it was my own hair. And my mother sitting across from me, laughing her ass off. She says, your uncle's standing next to you. I was like, whatever. And I felt like a tug, like, oh shit. But even then, of course, I'm Mrs. Skeptic. But I thought, you know, when you're a kid, you don't really know. I thought everybody grew up this way. I thought everybody grew up with, you know, yeah, St. Francis helped me, you know, take the dog to the vet, and, you know, St. Anthony helped me, you know, find my lost item, and blah, blah, blah. And of course your grandmother, you know, your great-grandmother talks to the Virgin Mary in her living room. She wasn't psychotic. My great-grandmother at one point revealed to my mother that she had been having conversations with the Virgin Mary, which of course does sound psychotic. But she told my mom that every once in a while she'd see a light in her living room, so she'd go in the living room and there would be a woman standing there, you know, in the blue and white, so she assumed it was the Virgin Mary. And again, heavily Catholic, so why wouldn't you? So she would tell my grandmother things that were going to happen, and like tell her what to do about it. So she foretold my great-grandmother, she foretold the death of one of her children. She foretold a couple of deaths in the family. She foretold, you know, she would tell her to watch her money certain years. And my mom was like, oh, okay, sounds legit, you know. And at one point, my great-grandmother came to her and said, my lady came last night, it's not going to be a good year. And my mom was like, oh crap. And it wasn't. It was a very bad year. There was a family member that passed away that year, and it was really gnarly. So That was on that side of the family. Now my grandmother, so that was my paternal great-grandmother. My grandmother, who was also Portuguese, she would have weird premonitions every now and then. She told me this herself. She said one night my uncle went fishing on the Napa River, and he was young. He was a kid. He was like 16, and he didn't come home. And she said, you know, when he was supposed to come home, she was like, we got to call the police. And my grandpa kind of blew her off, like, oh, he's just out having fun. And she was like, no, something's wrong. We got to call the police. She says, like, something like their boat got stuck. I know their boat got stuck. She knew it. She knew it. And sure enough, they called the cops, and they had to go out, and, you know, Coast Guard had to go get them, or Coast Guard, or whoever went and got people on the Napa River. But, you know, she was absolutely right. So she's had a couple of those premonitions down the bloodline in both sides of the family. And then I had a great aunt who I didn't realize was enormously psychic until way late in life. And she was enormously psychic. She had premonitions. She saw dead people. I don't think she talked to dead people. She's like me. She's like, I'm not dealing with that. But she had just an obscene amount of psychic ability. And in addition, on that side of the family, again, my paternal grandfather, I just found this out. I don't know. I'm looking at the dog, Santos. When did we find this out? Sandy, anything? No. I want to say it was my cousin's engagement party. My mom and my aunt were like, oh yeah, you know, great-great-grandma was a witch. What? She was the witch of Benicia, apparently. And I mean, she did the whole deal. Like, she was handing out cures and healing people. She could do premonitions. She could do all of it. Now, on my dad's side of the family, there was nothing that we know of. But my father was born with the call. And in Irish tradition, that means you have the second sight. You're born with a veil over your face. So it means you can see beyond the veil. You have the second sight. But that man, and I said this in the other video, I know, that man never exhibited the second sight as far as I can tell, ever, ever, ever. I remember when I was a kid, my mom, there would be certain times where she would say, do not go out tonight. Of course, we said, no, we're going out. And then something horrible would happen. One night, my car got stolen. Don't go out. I don't have a good feeling. All right, whatever. She said I saw dead people when I was little. I don't remember this, but she said that we used to live in this old Victorian house in Benicia, and she said when I was in the living room, I would like walk around this certain space. So finally she was like, you know, this happened over and over and over again. So finally she says, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm walking around the man that's standing there. And she was like, what? Oh yeah, there's this mean Santa Claus man. So he must have been a grumpy guy that had a white beard, right? But apparently I would say there's this mean Santa Claus man, and he's in the house, and you know, he's standing right there, and I don't want to walk through, you know, into him. So that I don't see ghosts anymore. My mom could see ghosts. She said one time there's a lot of very bizarre psychic phenomena that happens in my grandmother's house. We're not going to disturb Grammy and go on a ghost hunt in her house. My grandpa built that house with his own two hands. So this was back, you know, in the 40s, like way back in the day. And my mom saw a couple of ghosts in that house. I used to clean the house for Grammy way back in the day, and I would hate to be there alone. Like, I'd go in when nobody was there, and I'd crank the radio because I could not stand to be there in the quiet. My mom said she once went into her room when she was little. She shared the room with my aunt, and she opened the door, and she said there was a lady standing there in like almost like colonial garb, like old fashioned, you know, Victorian, you know, dress down to here, bonnet on, going through her stuff. Like open, like the drawer was open, and she was going through my mom's stuff. And she turned and looked at my mom. My mom said she just turned around and walked out and waited and came back later. So it's always been in the family. I've grown up with these stories, you know, but a lot of me, obviously, you know, the skeptical psychic, I thought, as she's wearing the Third Eye Champagne shirt, right? I know. But I thought, oh yeah, you know, everybody has these stories, but they're stories. But it did seem natural to me. And then one day, I did have a couple of premonitions. I used to read tarot cards in high school, and I don't know if I mentioned that in the other video. But I saw a deck of tarot cards in the store, and I was like, this looks cool. I'm going to do it, you know, just to do it. So I used to read cards way back in the day when I was like 14, 15, 16, 17. I was reading cards. And I actually, this is hella cool. I went to a private Catholic high school because Catholic. And I remember for a couple of projects, I was able to do projects on tarot. I was able to read tarot cards for the class. There was one class where one of the teachers somehow, my mother taught us how to like levitate. And I'm not talking like light as a feather, stiff as a board stuff. This was one of our Halloween things. We used to do these spooky things on Halloween. And Mom said back in the day, she was able to, lift up a whole person, just, her and like 3 people just using their fingers like this. So you would hold your wrist, support your wrist, and you'd have 2 fingers. And they'd have somebody sit in a chair, and it'd be a person in front and 2 people on either side, and you'd lift them up just like this. Okay, yeah, whatever, Mom. So like we did it. Of course we did it. I remember we did it. We got one of our friends who was a big guy. We were like, get in the chair. And she was like, you really have to concentrate and just pretend like, there's nothing in the chair. And I'm talking, my mother has these friggin' antique chairs, these ridiculous chairs, but we did it. Anyway, word got out at school. So one day, one of the teachers was like, I heard you do something weird. I was like, well, we do it for the class. So instead of having class that day, I had to go pull my sister out of freshman lunch and like a couple other people, and we're like trying to levitate people in environmental science that day. Swear to God. And I think it didn't work because I think we tried it with 2 guys, like 2 of the biggest football players we had, but they were like laughing the whole time. And so I feel like it didn't work, or maybe it worked a little bit, but when we did it at the house, it really worked. It was crazy town. So anyway, I was reading cards. I was able to read cards for students. I was able to read cards in class. It was I don't know if the Catholic Church is that lenient anymore because I feel like they turned into dicks. I mean, pedophilia notwithstanding. But I don't know if you'd be able to do that in this day and age. But it was a very cool time for me. It wasn't that oppressive. I know a lot of people have oppressive memories of the church, but we were okay. We were okay where I was. They were letting me read tarot cards in class. So I had a great religion teacher. So he was like, yeah, bring in the cards. They're cool. It's real. So, but after a while, I was like, this is bullshit. Threw the cards away, as kids do. But I remember like predicting things for people, and they were like, how did you know that? How did you know that? I'm like, well, it's in your cards. It was very matter of fact for me. So then I tossed the cards away, and I don't do it for a very long time because I'm very busy being young and partying. And then we moved to the evil cabin at Russian River, which you should all know about right by now. If you don't know about it, I'll find the videos. I'll try to link the videos. And I really shut it down then. But every once in a while in that house, I mean, yeah, we were all experiencing paranormal activity, hands down. I think I experienced more than most, but psychically I was like, no, I did not read cards. I never read cards in that house, even when we were there for the summer. And it's weird because I bought the cards in Guerneville. So I bought these cards in Guerneville at the coffee bazaar. They were just sitting there. Might have been the bookstore, but I remember buying them there, but I never read them in the cabin. Never. So something in me must have known. But anyway, so fast forward to I've graduated college, and I'm still not reading cards, and I'm still not doing anything psychic. But every once in a while, I was living my life really like from the gut. So, and it worked. It was working very well for me. I remember graduating, and I had some trouble getting a job, and blah 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 blah. I end up in the friggin' refinery industry because that's a lot around the Bay Area. There's a ton of refineries. So I'm in the refinery industry, and I'm just thinking, yep, this is fine. Like, it didn't really matter to me what I did as a job. So I was like, this is fine. I'm making good money, and whatever. So, and I'm writing on the side because I never really was like, yeah, writing, I'm gonna get paid hella money for that. You know what I mean? It was just like, yeah, this is the thing that I do. Like, this is like, I eat and I pee and I write. Like, that's what I do. So anyway, I'm writing on the side and just, doing the job. And then I got hurt at work, as we know. So I get hurt at work. This was during a Saturn return. Yay, right? I just moved into a brand new house, this house. And I get hurt, and the whole entire thing was botched. I mean, just from beginning to end, they didn't take me to a doctor for weeks, and then disability gets screwed up, and then I end up having to get a lawyer, and it was just awful. It was awful, awful, awful. And I remember I was in so much pain, and again, if you saw that other video, you know that it was like all these doctors wanted this crazy shit, but my gut kept saying, don't do it. I would like check in with myself, like, should I do this? No, don't do it. And I remember my sister sent me this article. She said, don't look at Western, like, don't look at American medicine. Like, don't look at it. She was like, they do better stuff and they're more patient oriented in Europe and the UK. So she starts sending me all these articles on my condition that were written out of the UK and written out of, European countries. And all of them said, this will heal on its own. Like, if you just leave it alone, it'll heal on its own. Don't get in there and muck about, or you're going to make yourself worse. So I thought, okay, I can do this. But they were like, it takes 4 or 5 years. And of course, nobody wants to wait that long, especially, your employer, all that stuff. So it was like, whatever, fuck you, I'm going to wait that long. But in the meantime, how do I alleviate my pain? Because they had put me on all this medication. They were constantly switching it out because I would go on one thing and I'd be like, I hate this. So then they try this other thing. I hate this. And a lot of people at the time didn't really know how bad it was for me. But for the first year I was injured, I was on my couch literally for a year. I couldn't move. It was a horrible, horrible pain. And then after that, I was kind of a little bit more mobile. But if I left the house, I was medicated because I couldn't walk otherwise. It was everything. It was just awful, awful, awful. So I started looking for alternative therapies because I didn't want to be on drugs, and I wanted to feel better, and I wanted to feel better naturally. So I start getting into acupuncture. I start getting into really heavy meditations. And that really seemed to help. Now, at the same time, I had a female relative who was a descendant of that great aunt who was really psychic. And she, and I firmly believe, that woman came into my life at the exact right time to tell me, to show me, to guide me, It just wasn't an accident. It wasn't. So she shows up in my life and says, I'm psychic. I'm hella psychic. And she is amazing. One of the best psychics I've ever seen. And you need tarot cards. And I'm thinking, do I really need tarot cards? But I had nothing to do. And, I had messed with them before. So I said, okay, I'll get some tarot. She gave me some tarot cards. She gave me a Rider-Waite deck. I just practiced and started reading everything I could. Everything. You would volumes of, I took myself to tarot college and I was reading constantly, and I was reading every day. I was obsessed with it, especially the Rider-Waite, which is sitting right here, because the symbolism in this deck is really profound to me. And I'm obsessed with the artwork of Pamela Coleman Smith. Everything in this, the symbols in this, there's no accidents. Do you know what I mean? Everything is deliberate, and you can look at everything and, you can link other cards to each other. It's a whole full story when you have this. And, as a writer, of course, I'm obsessed with the story anyway. But I started reading that. Now, as you know, in my journey, I eventually found Linda Grindle. So how this works is this. I remember just being really frustrated with my pain and everything, and all these doctors and the lawsuit was terrible, and I don't think I got the best lawyer, quite frankly, looking back on it. And I just didn't want to, I was like, I don't know what to do, and everybody's telling me you have to stick it out, you're gonna need this money, who knows, because every doctor I had seen said you're disabled forever and ever, you're gonna be in pain like this at this level. So at the level, and I would say if you're looking at the pain scale, I would probably tell you daily I was an 8 to a 10, straight up. And I'm not a big baby. When it comes to that kind of pain, physical pain, yeah. So they're telling me this is your daily life. Eventually you'll have surgery. You're going to be on drugs every day, all day long. You can't do the job that you used to do. You can't use a computer. You can't, and as a writer, of course, this is horrifying to me. This is your life now. So enjoy being disabled. I'm 30 years old, I'm 30 years old, and 31 and 32 being told, enjoy this. I remember going out, to my husband's shows, and having to be put in a special spot, because at a punk show people mosh and there's a crowd and people shove, and I remember having to be put in a special spot so nobody would hurt me, nobody would touch me. I wouldn't be able to be touched. It was that bad. Just as simple that would be oh God. I remember thinking I need answers, and fuck it, I'll go see a psychic. Some little shop had opened in Benicia, so I said I'm gonna go downtown Benicia, and I'm gonna get a reading. And here's Linda G, right? And she wasn't, I remember walking in, and she would always sit at the counter, and she didn't have a super big business going. She was really just had gotten back into it. So I remember like every time I'd go in there, she would be sitting there like, you know, you ready for your reading? You ready for your reading? And finally I was like, I'm ready for my reading. So she does the reading. She tells me all sorts of amazing stuff. And I'm like, this is a thing. So I remember I went back to her, and it was a while later. I went back to her, and that's when I said, yeah, I'm a reader. Like I know the cards. Somehow it came out that I knew the cards. So she said, you want to do a reading? I didn't have cards. I read blind, which is the first time I'd ever done that. I was a total newbie at that kind of stuff. Of course, I'm doing it all the time now, but I read blind, and she was like, you're going to work here. End of story. Come on, let's go talk to Carol. So, you know, there it was. All of a sudden I'm doing it for a living, but I didn't love it. I'm going to tell you this. I did not love it. This is going to be a long one, so I hope you're settling in. It was interesting to me. I knew that I had to do it. On a gut level, I knew that I had to do it. And at this point, I'm deferring to my cards consistently. Like, I knew the cards were saying, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And it was at that point that I remember just like doing a journal entry one day, and all of a sudden I'm getting like messages, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? So I start writing them down. I'm just like, okay, this is like, it gets weirder and weirder the more you get into it. And you're talking again, okay, so I grew up Catholic, but I don't believe in any of the stuff that the Catholic Church teaches. I don't. And I don't believe in saints, angels, demons. I don't believe in any of that crap. Ghosts, yeah, I've always believed in some form of haunting, just because there's too much for me evidence-wise. But even then, I have always thought, and still do think, that there might just be some kind of dimensional bleeding happening, and not really like, ooh, I'm a ghost. Do you like that? Did you like my ghost impression? So anyway, but it gets weirder and weirder. So okay, now I'm reading cards professionally. I'm getting hits without cards. I can walk into a room and read people. I remember it was very bad. It was rough on me. It was really bad because I couldn't handle it. I was being overloaded. I would have crazy dreams at night. I would dream things that would come true. I was completely good. He's a good looking guy. I was completely bombarded. It was hard for me. And I remember like batteries in the house were draining. I would have lights flickering. And I think it was me. I don't think it was, you know, anything else. I think it was me just like, who knows, emitting some kind of goddamn electromagnetic field or some shit. But then I'm doing this weird writing stuff. And I'm getting, you know, predictions out of it. And I'm getting really like precise down to the minute. Like, tomorrow, XYZ is going to happen. And yeah, they would drop in words that I didn't know. So the first time that happened, I was like, what the fuck is this word they're fucking telling me? And I started to question my own sanity. I'll be real with you. I was like, this is crazy town. I'm making up words. I'm getting messages. You know, I was like, this is bullshit. But then I would look up these words. I would have them spelled out phonetically. So then I tried to figure out how they were spelled in real life, because I was like, you know what, I'm going to Google it. Yes, it's a real thing. It's in this language: Aramaic, Hebrew, Greek. Sometimes in Hindi, and there's another one, but I can't remember what it was. But anyway, it would just be peppered throughout within these sentences, and it would be like, blah, 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 foreign word, blah, blah, blah. And it would make sense within the context of the sentence. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't even believe in spirit guides. I mean, I think I use the phrasing because it's common for people to go, oh, your guides are telling me this, right? So everybody knows kind of what's going on there. When I say your guides are telling me this, if you want to dissect it, what I'm really saying is I'm getting information that isn't coming from myself, and it's not coming from my cards, so it's coming from an outside source, and I don't know what that source is. So I just typically say, yeah, it's your guides. But for me, I'm like, I don't know what that is. You know me. All of this is going on. I'm still in pain. You know, I'm completely overwhelmed. There's this world that existed that I didn't even know existed, that I'm like, oh, like things are, you know, it's legit. And I remember just reading anything I could get my hands on. So I start hanging out with Linda G a lot. We become like homies, you know, really good friends. And then at some point during that whole time period, I remember I also got a reading from Elisa. And so she was just somebody that I had seen, because at that point, I was very heavily into astrology. I was trying to figure it out. It's not for me, but I wanted at least a rudimentary idea of what it was, you know, and how it worked. So I found her I was, you know, just going through a bunch of astrologers, online astrologers, and I found her, so I get a reading from her, and it was legit. So during that time period, I was visiting in New York, and she happened to live out there at the time, so I was like, can I get an in-person reading? My cousin and I, we get on the ferry, we go to Staten Island, and we get a reading from this lady in her house, and she and I just kind of vibed. So I have now these two incredibly psychic, incredible friends, and it's just like more and more into this, psychic world. At that point, yeah, like when I would do private readings, there would be, if you want to call them ghosts, they would come through. I would feel a presence in the room. I would get a picture in my head, and then someone would start talking. So it's like, okay, I'm assuming this is a ghost. Who knows? Could be a thought form, could be nothing. Good. We'll take a break in a minute. It could be me reading somebody's mind. Who the hell knows? But I know that I would get these, and they made me very uncomfortable. So I didn't do them, but it was happening. I knew from reading for myself, from getting readings for myself, and I was seeing hella other psychics. So that's the thing. Once I was in. So I was like, I'm going to see every psychic I fucking can that I can afford. I'm reading for all these people. I'm seeing, evidence that, okay, this stuff is real. I don't know how it's real, but it's real. So I'm going with it. Obviously, I really started to like, okay, well, maybe there's, maybe more stuff is real. Maybe, maybe there's this, maybe there's that. Maybe there's a different explanation for what we think, is a thing. Like maybe, like I said, maybe the ghost thing is some like dimensional bleeding. Like who knows? We don't know. So I just started investigating everything. And I was seeing so many psychics. So when I could afford it, because a lot of them didn't want to exchange. Linda G always, Eliza always, but a lot of them didn't want to exchange. So when I could afford it, I was paying out money to visit psychics, to see psychics, to get readings. And I have to say this, and maybe this was just my experience, but I don't think it is. Which is why I did the video on how to spot a fake psychic, is I knew when I was getting a bunk reading, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people don't. But I would sit there and I would say, in my mind, of course, I am a perfectionist, but I do have this standard, okay? And it's me, and it's Linda, and it's Eliza. I have a standard, and the standard is, I know when I'm being bullshitted, and I know when somebody has a hit. And if I sit there through an hour-long reading and there's not one hit, and they're telling me general stuff, it's a bunk reading. So I was getting a ton of readings. I was looking at different people's processes. And that is honestly why to this day I can confidently say that I will only recommend Linda and Eliza when it comes to actual psychic readings. I am going to get a past life reading with Lena Rodriguez, which I'm really excited about. Very, very, very excited about. But I've seen so many of them, you guys, and I've seen so many fakers, and I've had so many people take my money, which is why I offer refunds, because I remember sitting quite a few readings and going like, I didn't want to be rude, and part of me wanted to, see where it went, you know what I mean? Because I was just really like on like a knowledge quest in a way, but part of me wanted to be like, fuck this, like I can't believe I paid money for this. I can't believe you charge more than I do. And it would just be the worst reading ever. And there were a couple people that I saw more than once, just like, well, maybe they had a bad day. No, they're not really psychic. They don't know what the F they're doing. So that, I think, fed into my whole idea of legitimate psychic work and how difficult it actually is. And I don't buy into that theory. Oh, everybody's psychic. I don't subscribe to it, because I've been, if everybody was just a little bit psychic, then the readings I got wouldn't have been so shitty. And people wouldn't feel the need to hire me. Do you know what I'm saying? Now I'm doing it for a living, and then I remember very clearly I was distinctly told, okay, you got to stop doing it right now. That was a while ago. That was years ago, and I was like, I don't want to. But I did, and I took a big long break reading professionally, and then I had a hospital bill I couldn't pay, and then Mr. Santos had a hospital bill we couldn't pay, so I ended up coming out of retirement twice. I came out of retirement once to pay my own bill, and then kind of, got a couple of new clients, people that I'm still seeing nowadays, my VIPs, but then I kind of eased back out of it, like, it's not really for me, you know, it's just exhausting, and, you know, I really want to do something more creative, and da-da-da-da-da, but it was really good money, and it was paying, you know, it was paying for these bills that we had, so I was kind of doing it here and there, but I wasn't really pushing it. And then this one in 2015 nearly dies. And, you know, at the time, I was like, well, it's his time. Obviously, it was not his time. Even the vet, the other day, we had him in the vet, and the vet was like, I really thought he was going to go in 2015. Like, I figured his number was up. You know, he's months, maybe. Still kicking. Although the other day, I did think he was going to drop dead. I was like, this is it, because he was really listless and like not okay, and then it turns out he had just gotten fleas from the emergency vet. So I noticed there was some flea dirt. Finally I noticed it, and I was like, oh crap. So I gave him his flea medicine, and now he's very frisky again. So anyway, but I came back out of retirement, and this time I was pushing it. This time I was like, I have to pay this dog, like I need to pay for his medical care, because it was ongoing medical care. So it wasn't like the hospital where you get a bill and then you can pay it off. This was like the dog needed ongoing medical care. I needed the money right away to pay for it. So everybody come get a reading. And I was pushing it. My husband was pushing it. I was pushing it on social media. I was like, come on, I need money. So that's how I got back into it after that. And that became fairly consistent. So I was doing that really consistently right up until we have the election of he who shall not be named. So at that point, I had been reading, probably in November, I started reading on him and HRC. And I was doing private readings. I wasn't doing it, I was just doing it because I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is crazy town. And I was really worried because I knew if this guy got elected, so many people would be in pain. There would be loss of life. There would be a lot of really bad things that happened. And I read on it, and is Hillary Clinton gonna win the election? And cards always said yes. I never once asked, will Hillary Clinton be a sitting president? That's why, now to this day, you guys know when I ask a question, when I'm doing a reading, I really think about what I'm going to ask, how I'm going to ask it. I try to ask it in certain, different ways, so I cover all my bases. That was a very important lesson for me, because I wasn't covering my bases. I really just kept asking, is she going to win the election? Cards are always like, yeah, victory. Lisa and I, at that point, were reading cards together, like privately, like we were messaging each other, and I read on it, and yeah, Hillary's gonna win the election. And then she read on it and said, yeah, Hillary's gonna win. And then she put down more cards and she said, no, wait, Trump's gonna be president. And I remember the distinction very clearly, because she never said Trump was gonna win. She said Trump's gonna be president. And she was like, I must be wrong. This is making no sense, right? Because it's making no sense. Like, we're both getting Hillary wins, but Trump is president. Now we know. In January of 2017, I was just feeling stuck, and I had found this new guy on YouTube. His name's Andrew Martin, and I was really into his stuff at that time. I skip around, so he doesn't do predictive stuff like that. He does a lot of more like energy stuff, which I'm really into, obviously. I had seen him, and for a while I was very into, when he was very early on, when he didn't have no followers, I was like, Leo King. Shout out to David Palmer. I was like, yeah, I was very into the Leo King. I still watch his stuff. I do, because I like to get, I like to know what's going on in the sky. I like the weather report. I like his weather report. I like Steve Judd's weather report. And then, Eliza's pretty much on call. I'm all, girl, what is happening in my life? Look at my chart. But I kind of would hop around and look at different psychics. And I remember at that point, because I was just like, watching shit on YouTube. You know how you do. But there were a couple of things that I was watching, and I was like, this is making me feel bad. Like, I would get bad vibes. So there were certain people that I wouldn't watch anymore. But I remember Andrew Martin, and I was really like into his stuff, and he was just really cool, and I liked him, and he had good energy. So I booked a reading with him because he had a reading on sale, and I was like, it's on sale. So I book a reading with the guy, and he says, I said, I'm just really frustrated. I don't know. I don't really want to do readings for a living. I really want to be creative. I really want to write. Like, I want to put stories out into the world. I like doing readings, but private readings are exhausting, blah, blah, blah. And they are exhausting. That's another reason that I'm backing off of them, is they make me sick. They make me exhausted. And I can't do it anymore. And that's another reason that I price them the way I do, because it's literally taxing my health. So it has to be worth it for me, you know, on the level of, okay, if I'm making a good income, then it's worth it for me to like basically put my health in danger. You know, hazard pay. But he said, you know, you really need to be seen and be heard this year. That's what I'm getting very clearly. So, and it wasn't a real psychic reading. It's weird. He reads differently. And I only had the one reading with him, but it was really good. It got me to where I am today. So, you know, kudos, shout out to Andrew Martin. But I remember he said that, and then he said, you know, you're just, because I was getting rejection after rejection. So artists, writers, everybody, let me tell you this. I have been rejected more times than you can count. Like literally, I've been rejected by every fucking agent and publisher and magazine that you could think of. I was really frustrated because I really wanted to do creative stuff. So he said, you're going about it the wrong way. He's like, you're just tackling it head on, you know, being your Scorpio self. Like, he's like, try something different. And he says you should start a YouTube channel. Okay. And I was like, oh, that's not really my thing, you know, as oddly as you might think, I did not want to be in front of the camera. I didn't want to be in front of the camera. I didn't want to be well known. I just wanted to be like reclusive fucking Bronte writer lady and put out stories, and that's it. So he says, no, get in front of the camera. So I go, what the fuck am I going to do? I really blew him off, quite frankly. And then in the next 2 days, I had two separate people that are very close to me. One of them, and very smart, one of them being Eliza and one of them being my cousin Jillian. So both of them tell me, without knowing about this reading, you should start a YouTube channel. So I was like, fuck, that means I have to start. Like, that is the universe talking to me. Like, when you hear it like that, that means the universe is saying, hello. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to read on? So I kind of cruise around YouTube and I see like different things people read on. Oh, they do weekly readings. They do readings by sign. They do readings on celebrities. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to read on Donald Trump because I'm obsessed with this. Like, at that point, he's in office and I am obsessed. And I'm already reading on it by myself. So why not read on it? And I remember the night of the election. Okay, the night of the election, I remember Andrea Chalupa was already tweeting like, Paul Manafort, like, you guys, shit's going down, this isn't legit. And I felt the truth of it. I felt the truth of it. I was like, this lady's right. And, you know, come to find out, yes, she is. And now, you know, however, you know, a year and a half later, there's Gaslit Nation. Like, I felt it. This lady is absolutely saying the truth. She was talking about Russian interference. She was talking about Paul Manafort. She was talking about, you know, Russia stealing the election. She's talking about Donald Trump. She's talking about the DNC emails being hacked. She's already talking about it and saying this is a big deal. And I was like, it is. So that's what I'm going to read on. That's how I started my channel. That's how I started reading on Trump. It was just like, to me, I was like, I'm obsessed with it already. I might as well read on it. So I start reading on it and it's like, oh, hello. Oh, hello. Oh, we like this. Oh, we like this. So, you know, I just honestly thought I was going to put a couple videos out, and I had no goal in mind. I had no thoughts in mind. I had no plan. I had nothing. I was just like, I'm going to go on video and read on whatever the fuck. Read on Donald Trump. So now here we are. It's almost 2 years. It's almost 2 years into the channel, and I'm going. You know, obviously, I'm still going for it. I really enjoy making these videos because it enables me to be really creative. And, you know, once I realized that I could be, you know, as obsessed as I am with Hollywood glamour, you know, in old Hollywood, I was like, I can make myself up and I can have wardrobe and I can have hair and this is fun. So that's when I got really excited to be on camera. That's when I was like, actually, wait, I like this. This is like, it's like I'm playing dress up. You know what I mean? It's like, I am just playing. So get done up, get on camera, read your cards, and be done. And it enables me to be really creative. It enables me to pursue all the weird shit, Bigfoot hunting, aliens, conspiracy theories, you know, all that stuff. So everything that happens with this channel, with my business, it's completely organic. It's completely organic, which typically when I see stuff like that for my clients, I would say, well, that means you're on the right path. So that's how I got from A to B, or Z, or wherever I am, A to K. That is my kind of my origin story, how I got from where, you know, I was like, this is bullshit, to, you know, hey guys, let's go on a Bigfoot hunt. I have been very privileged to meet and read for a lot of people in the last year and a half. And even the people that I haven't read for that have been on my channel, that have been on Patreon. Such an awesome experience you guys are giving me. So I hope that you're getting it back from me, Narcissa Malfoy. I like having fun with you guys. That's like when I realized we were having a good time in the midst of all of this nastiness that's happening right now. I was like, this is good. This is like medicine. Like, this is good for us. Mr. Santos. I'll give you the bonus material, which is Mr. Santos's origin story. Okay, you ready? Mr. Santos, soon to be 19 years old in March of 2019. I was living in the evil cabin. I was living with an evil boyfriend, who shall remain nameless. My mom was like, no animals. Because, you know, they owned it. We paid them rent. Animals, no animals, no animals. And he was like, I want a dog. This guy was a dick. But he was like, I want a dog. He was very abusive, actually. It ended up being just a terrible relationship. So anyway, I want a dog, I want a dog. No, 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 no. Like, he wasn't paying rent. I would just like to point out. He was freeloading off me. So then one morning, I get up fully blind because I wear contacts. If you've seen my Instagram, you know I have very thick glasses. So I didn't have my glasses on, and I got up to go to the bathroom, and I saw everybody's huddled around something on the floor, and I was like, that motherfucker bought a dog. And so he had. He had gone somewhere, saw some sign on the side of the road, and, you know, free dogs. So he went to some farm in Petaluma, and he said that this runt, he was the runt of the litter, Mr. Santos, the runt came over and was, you know, the paws were so big and the ears were so long, he was flopping over his own ears, he was tumbling over his own ears, came over and sat down on his shoe. And he was like, well, I'm going to take this one. So he brings the dog home, and he had all these sick fantasies of, because Santos is a pit bull border collie mix. So he had all these fantasies. He thought he was a full pit bull, by the way, which any idiot could tell he wasn't. But anyway, he had all these idiot fantasies. He was going to fight the dog. I'm going to get his ears clipped and get his tails clipped. He's going to be a fighting dog. I'm going to make money off this dog. And I mean, the guy was just such a piece of garbage. And I remember just like grabbing Sanny and going, no, that's not going to be a thing. And immediately that dog was my dog. That was my dog. End of story. Like, I remember when the boyfriend, when he left, luckily he wasn't allowed to take dogs where he was going, and we were still together tentatively, tenuously. So I kept the dog. And then one day he was like, I've come for my dog. And we were like, no, you haven't. And I had another boyfriend at the time that was very big. And he was like, take the rest of your shit and get out. The dog's staying. That's how Santos and I became life partners. And he has been with me through thick and thin ever since. When he was a puppy, when we lived in that evil cabin, he used to like barge you. Like, if the door was open, he was out like a shot, and he would knock people over, take off, go off into the woods, disappear. And I can't tell you, man, he would come back sometimes covered in blood, never his, sand, dirt, mud, twigs. Like, I don't know what this dog got up to. I don't know what the hell he got up to. But he was a wild, wild young man, and fiercely loyal, terribly loyal. If anybody got too close to me, he would take their hands off. Still fiercely loyal, obviously. So there's your bonus content. There's Mr. Santos's origin story. And on that note, I shall leave you. And yeah, the shirts are for sale, by the way. I don't know how much they cost yet. But $20 and up patrons are going to get them for free. So I'll get you a cost. I'll get you some information on that. All right, my darlings. Mwah. Okie dokie. Good thing we took a little break. We're about to have an on-camera disaster. Special thanks to Jacinta Higgins, our main sponsor for this program.